The mailbox hung at a 45-degree angle, victim of another joyride by the Henderson twins. I'd fixed it 3 times this month, and here I was again at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, bourbon burning in my chest, trying to straighten the damn thing with a socket wrench and what remained of my patience. That's when my phone buzzed. I've met someone new. I want a fresh start. I stared at the screen, the words glowing like neon against the darkness of Millbrook Avenue. 16 years of marriage, reduced to a text message. Not even the courtesy of a phone call or face-to-face conversation. Just 26 characters that might as well have been a death certificate. My name is Jake Brennan, and up until that moment, I thought I knew who I was. 41 years old, Army veteran with 4 deployments under my belt, owner of Brennan Construction, a small outfit that kept the lights on and food on the table. I was the guy who fixed things. Broken pipes, sagging porches, cracked foundations. If something was falling apart in this Rust Belt town, people called me, but I couldn't fix this. Riley, my wife of 16 years, had apparently found herself a new project. Someone shinier than a small-town contractor who still woke up in cold sweats from dreams of Kandahar province. Someone who didn't have calloused hands and a back that creaked when he got out of bed. I dropped the wrench and pulled up her contact. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Her voice, professional and polished, invited me to leave a message after the tone. The same voice that used to whisper my name in the dark, back when we still shared a bed instead of sleeping on opposite sides of our king-size mattress like strangers in a hotel. "Really, Riley? A text message?" I said after the beep. 16 years and I get a goddamn text message. I hung up and looked at our house. My house, technically, since I'd built half of it with my own hands. The mortgage was in my name, along with the truck payments and the business loan. But somehow I had the sinking feeling that wouldn't matter much in the coming storm. The porch light flickered on, and there she was. Riley Brennan, soon to be Riley something else, standing in the doorway in her silk pajamas. Even at nearly midnight, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup still intact from whatever work function she'd attended tonight. "You got my message," she said, crossing her arms. "Your message? That's what we're calling it?" I walked toward the porch, leaving the broken mailbox for another day. Most people call that cowardly. Her jaw tightened. "Don't start with me, Jake. Not tonight. When would be a good time? Should I schedule an appointment through your secretary? This isn't working anymore. You know it. I know it. We've been roommates for the past 2 years. She wasn't wrong, but hearing it said out loud felt like taking shrapnel to the chest. We had grown apart, her climbing the ladder at Morrison, Keller and Associates, me trying to keep my small business afloat in a town where half the population had moved away chasing better opportunities. "So who is he?" I asked, climbing the porch steps. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." Riley sighed, the kind of exasperated sound she'd perfected over the years. "Evan Cranford. He's a senior partner at the firm. Evan Slick Cranford. I knew the name. Everybody in town knew the name. He drove a BMW, lived in the fancy development on the north side, and had his picture in the local paper every time he donated money to some charity. The kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits and had never worked a day with his hands. "Your boss," I said. "How original." "Don't be crude." "Crude?" "Riley, you just told me you're leaving me for your boss via text message." "I think crude went out the window about 10 minutes ago." She stepped back into the house, and I followed. Our living room looked like a furniture showroom, everything perfectly arranged, nothing out of place. It had never felt like home to me, more like a display case for Riley's idea of what successful people were supposed to own. "I've already talked to a lawyer," she said. "I want to do this amicably." Amicably. I tasted the word like it was poison. What does that mean exactly? "It means I want half of everything, the house, the business, Emily's college fund, and I want primary custody. Emily, our 17-year-old daughter, currently sleeping upstairs, oblivious to the fact that her world was about to implode. The one good thing Riley and I had managed to create together. Like hell, I said. Jake, be reasonable. I make more money than you do. I can provide better opportunities for Emily, better schools, better connections. Better connections. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean Slick's connections? His name is Evan, and yes, he has connections. Emily could get into any college she wants with the right recommendations. And what about what Emily wants? Did you bother asking her? Riley's composure cracked, just slightly. She'll understand, eventually. Will she? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're blowing up her life for a midlife crisis. This isn't a midlife crisis, Jake. This is me finally admitting that we want different things. You want to stay in this dying town, fixing other people's problems for pocket change. I want more. More. I nodded slowly. More money, more status, more everything. Just not more of me. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself another bourbon. The bottle was nearly empty, a fitting metaphor for pretty much everything in my life right now. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Duval's house across the street. The old woman was probably pressed against her curtains right now, trying to figure out why we were having a heated conversation at midnight. By tomorrow morning, half the town would know something was up. I'll be staying at Tara's for a while, Riley said from the doorway, until we figure out the arrangements. Tara Hoffman, Riley's best friend since high school. Another climber? Another woman who'd married young and was now looking for something better. They'd been thick as thieves lately, going out for girls' nights that lasted until 3 a.m. How long? I asked. How long what? How long have you been screwing him? Riley's face flushed. That's not... How long, Riley? 6 months, she said quietly. 6 months. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks, trying to keep the business afloat during the slowest construction season in recent memory, my wife had been playing house with her boss. 6 months of lies, of fake smiles over dinner, of working late and client meetings. Get out, I said. Jake, get your things and get out. Now. She started to say something else, then thought better of it. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard drawers opening and closing, heard the zipper of a suitcase. 20 minutes later, she was gone, taking with her the last pretense that our marriage had been anything more than a business arrangement. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the empty bourbon bottle, listening to the house settle around me. Somewhere above, Emily was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her parents' marriage had just died with all the ceremony of putting down a sick dog. Tomorrow I'd have to tell her. Tomorrow I'd have to call a lawyer of my own. Tomorrow I'd have to figure out how to rebuild my life from scratch. But tonight, I just sat in the dark and wondered when I'd stopped being enough. I woke up on the kitchen table with a crick in my neck and the taste of regret in my mouth. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and I could hear Emily moving around upstairs, getting ready for school. Normal sounds of a normal morning, except nothing was normal anymore. The empty bourbon bottle sat in front of me like evidence at a crime scene. I swept it into the trash and started coffee, trying to figure out how to tell my daughter that her mother had decided to trade up. Dad? Emily appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over her shoulder. She had Riley's blonde hair but my green eyes, and right now those eyes were full of concern. Where's Mom? She had to leave early, I said, which was technically true. We need to talk when you get home from school. Emily studied my face with the intensity only teenagers could muster. Are you guys getting divorced? The question hit me like a sucker punch. What makes you ask that? I'm not stupid, Dad. You've been sleeping in separate bedrooms for 6 months. Mom's been working late every night, and you look like you got hit by a truck. Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. We'll talk tonight, I promised. Go to school. Try to have a normal day. She kissed my cheek and headed for the door, pausing at the threshold. Whatever's happening, it's not your fault, okay? After she left, I sat with my coffee and tried to piece together the wreckage of my life. Riley wanted half of everything, including my business. The business I'd built from nothing, working 18-hour days and bidding jobs so tight I barely broke even, just to establish a reputation. My phone buzzed with a text from Cal Palmer, my old army buddy who ran the VFW bar downtown. Heard through the grapevine. You okay? The Millbrook grapevine was more efficient than the internet. Mrs. Duval had probably called half the neighborhood before I'd finished my first cup of coffee. I texted back. Been better. Could use a beer later. Come by after 5. First one's on the house. I spent the morning trying to work, but my heart wasn't in it. I had 3 estimates to write up and a bathroom renovation that was supposed to start next week, but I couldn't concentrate. Every time I tried to focus on measurements and material costs, I kept thinking about Riley and Evan Cranford. Around noon, I gave up pretending to be productive and drove to Riley's law firm. Morrison, Keller, and Associates occupied a restored Victorian mansion on Main Street, all brass nameplates and marble floors. The kind of place that charged $500 an hour to tell you things you already knew. I parked across the street and waited. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to accomplish. Maybe I just needed to see them together to make it real in my mind. The betrayal felt abstract, like something that happened to other people in movies. I didn't have to wait long. At 12:30, Evan Cranford emerged from the building, and my wife was right behind him. She'd changed clothes since last night, now wearing a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. They walked to his BMW, and he opened the passenger door for her like a perfect gentleman. As they drove past, I got a good look at Evan Cranford. 45, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of tan that came from weekend golf games. Handsome in a catalog model sort of way. The kind of man who'd never had dirt under his fingernails or worried about making payroll. I followed them to Giuseppe's, the upscale Italian place on the other side of town. Through the window, I watched them share lunch like lovers, touching hands across the table, laughing at each other's jokes. Riley looked happier than I'd seen her in years. That's when I noticed something interesting. Evan had parked his BMW in the fire lane, hazard lights blinking like he owned the place. The car was immaculate, midnight blue with chrome accents, probably worth more than my house. I walked over and took a closer look. The license plate read Lawman 1, because of course it did. The interior was all leather and wood grain, with a briefcase in the back seat and a parking pass for the country club hanging from the mirror. That's when inspiration struck. I walked to the hardware store 2 blocks away and bought a small bag of sugar and a bottle of paint stripper. 20 minutes later, I was back at Giuseppe's, where the happy couple was still gazing into each other's eyes over tiramisu. The sugar went into the gas tank. An old myth, actually, that wouldn't do much damage, but Evan wouldn't know that. The paint stripper went on the hood in a careful pattern that spelled out cheater in letters that would eat through the clear coat and leave permanent scars. I left a note under the windshield wiper. Enjoy your ride. Next time, it's your face. Then I walked back to my truck and waited. 20 minutes later, they emerged from the restaurant, Evan's hand on the small of Riley's back. I watched his face change as he saw his car, watched him pick up the note and read it. His expression went from confusion to rage in about 3 seconds. Riley said something I couldn't hear, but her body language was pure panic. She kept looking around the parking lot like she expected me to jump out from behind a car. Evan pulled out his phone, probably calling the police or his insurance company or both. I started my truck and drove away, feeling satisfied for the first time in months. It was a small victory, petty and childish, but it felt good to hit back. To remind Evan Cranford that actions had consequences, even for men who thought they were untouchable. My phone started ringing before I made it home. Riley's number flashed on the screen, and I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, then switched to texting. What did you do? Jake, answer your phone. The police are looking for you. This is insane. Call me back. I pulled into my driveway and saw Mrs. Duval watering her flowers with suspicious intensity. She waved, and I waved back, wondering how long it would take for her to work up the courage to ask me directly about the drama. Inside, I poured myself a beer and sat down to wait. If Evan wanted to involve the police, that was his choice. But he'd have to prove I was the one who vandalized his car, and I'd been careful not to leave any evidence. The doorbell rang at 4:30. Through the peephole, I saw 2 police officers, Tom Bradley, who'd graduated high school with me, and a younger officer I didn't recognize. "Hey, Tom," I said, opening the door. "What's up?" "Hey, Jake. We need to ask you some questions about an incident at Giuseppe's today. Evan Cranford's car was vandalized." "That's too bad," I said. "Nice car. He seems to think you might know something about it." "Why would he think that?" Tom looked uncomfortable. "Come on, Jake. The whole town knows about you and Riley. Cranford says there was a threatening note." "A threatening note? That sounds serious. What did it say?" "You know what it said." I shrugged. "I've been working all day. Got 3 estimates to finish and a bathroom job starting Monday. Check with my suppliers. I was at Home Depot around noon, then Millbrook Lumber." It was true, technically. I had stopped at both places, just not for very long. The younger officer spoke up. "Do you own any paint stripper, mister?" "Brennan?" "I'm a contractor. I own lots of chemicals. Paint stripper, mineral spirits, acetone, muriatic acid, goes with the territory." Tom sighed. "Jake, I'm going to give you some advice as a friend. Whatever's going on between you and Riley, don't make it worse by doing something stupid. Cranford's got connections, and he's talking about pressing charges." "I appreciate the advice, Tom. But I didn't vandalize anyone's car." After they left, I sat on my porch and waited for Emily to come home. The confrontation with the police should have worried me, but instead I felt oddly calm. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one being pushed around. My phone buzzed with another text from Riley. "We need to talk. This has to stop." I typed back, "You started it. I'm just finishing it." The war had begun. Emily took the news better than I'd expected, which somehow made it worse. She sat at the kitchen table, nodding calmly as I explained that her mother and I were getting divorced, that Riley had found someone else, that everything was about to change. "I figured," she said when I finished. "Mom's been different lately. Happier, but like guilty happy. And she bought new underwear. I didn't need to know that last part." "Sorry." Emily picked at her pizza slice. "So what happens now?" "I don't know yet. Your mom wants you to live with her primarily, but I'll fight that if I have to." "What if I don't want to live with her?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's the one who cheated. She's the one who broke up our family. Why should I have to go live with her and her new boyfriend?" "It's complicated, Em. The courts don't know Mom like I do. They don't know she's been planning this for months, maybe longer. All those late nights, all those new clothes, all those times she came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't yours. My daughter was 17, but in that moment she sounded older than her years. Older and angrier than I'd realized. We'll figure it out," I promised. "But right now I need you to try to stay out of it. Don't take sides." "Too late, Dad." I already picked a side. The next morning was Saturday, which meant Emily's volleyball game at the high school. I'd been going to her games for 3 years, sitting in the same section of bleachers with the other parents, cheering when our team scored and groaning when they didn't. Today felt different. As I walked into the gym, I could feel eyes on me. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, then resumed in hushed tones. The Millbrook Gossip Network had been working overtime. I found my usual spot and tried to ignore the stares. Emily waved from the court during warm-ups, and I waved back, determined to give her one normal thing in the middle of all this chaos. That's when Riley and Evan walked in. They made quite an entrance. Riley in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, Evan in khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's car payments. They looked like they'd stepped out of a country club catalog. The gym went dead quiet for about 3 seconds, then erupted in whispers. Riley's face was flushed, but she held her head high as they climbed the bleachers. Evan's expression was harder to read, somewhere between defiant and nervous. They sat on the opposite side of the gym from me, but I could feel the tension crackling across the space like electricity. Emily noticed too. I saw her glance back and forth between us, her jaw tight with embarrassment. The game started, and I tried to focus on volleyball instead of the drama in the stands. Emily was having a good game, making several key plays that had our side of the gym cheering. For a few minutes, I almost forgot about the circus surrounding us. Then halftime came, and Evan made his move. I was walking to the concession stand when he intercepted me near the gym entrance. Up close, he was taller than I'd expected, maybe 6'2" to my 5'10". He had the kind of presence that came from years of commanding courtrooms and intimidating witnesses. "We need to talk," he said. "Do we?" "About the other day. About my car." I looked around the crowded hallway, noting how many people were suddenly very interested in our conversation. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the shit, Brennan. We both know you vandalized my BMW." "That's a serious accusation. Got any proof?" His face darkened. "I don't need proof. I know it was you. Must be nice to be so certain about things. Me? I prefer evidence." Evan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Let me make something clear. Riley is with me now. You can accept that like an adult, or you can keep acting like a child and deal with the consequences." "Consequences?" I laughed, loud enough for half the hallway to hear. "What kind of consequences? You going to sue me? Call the cops again? Maybe hire a private investigator?" "If I have to." "Here's a better idea, Slick." I used the nickname deliberately, knowing it would irritate him. "Why don't you focus on your new girlfriend and leave me alone? I'm sure you've got plenty to keep you busy, like explaining to your wife why you're suddenly working so many late nights." The color drained from his face. "What did you say?" "Oh, did I forget to mention? I know about Mrs. Cranford. Nice lady from what I hear. Probably doesn't deserve to be married to a cheating piece of shit, but that's between you and her." Evan's hand shot out and grabbed my shirt. "You son of a—" "Is there a problem here?" We both turned to see Coach Morrison, Emily's volleyball coach, standing behind us with his arms crossed. He was a big man, former college linebacker who'd coached at the high school for 20 years. The kind of guy who didn't tolerate nonsense. "No problem, Coach," I said. "Mr. Cranford was just leaving." Evan released my shirt and stepped back, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. The hallway had gone quiet again, and I could see people pulling out their phones, probably texting about the confrontation they'd just witnessed. "Maybe you should both take a walk," Coach Morrison suggested. "Let the kids play their game in peace." "Good idea," I said. I was just heading back to my seat anyway. As I walked away, I heard Evan mutter something under his breath, but I didn't turn around. The damage was done. By Monday morning, everyone in town would know that Evan Cranford had grabbed me in front of half the school, and that I'd mentioned his wife. The second half of the game was a blur. Emily played well, but I could tell she was distracted by what had happened. When it was over, she jogged over to where I was sitting. "Dad, what was that about?" "Nothing important. You played great tonight. Don't change the subject. Everyone's talking about you and Mr. Cranford. Let them talk. You ready to go home?" On the way to the parking lot, I saw Riley waiting by Evan's car. She looked upset, gesturing angrily as she spoke to him. When she saw me, her expression turned murderous. "Jake," she called out, "we need to talk." "No, we don't," I replied, keeping walking. "You can't keep doing this." "You're embarrassing Emily." I stopped and turned around. "I'm embarrassing Emily? Really? You bring your boyfriend to our daughter's volleyball game, and I'm the one embarrassing her? He's not my boyfriend. He's… What? Your lover? Your sugar daddy? Your ticket to a better life? Riley's face went white. Around us, parents were slowing down to listen, not even pretending to mind their own business anymore. You're being cruel, she said. I'm being honest. There's a difference. I got in my truck and drove away, leaving Riley standing in the parking lot with her new man and an audience of her peers. It felt good to have the last word for once, even if it meant burning bridges I might need later. At home, Emily went straight to her room without saying goodnight. I sat on my porch with a beer, watching Mrs. Duval's curtains twitch as she tried to spy on me without being obvious about it. My phone buzzed with a text from Cal Palmer. Heard you had words with Cranford at the school. You okay? I typed back, never better. See you tomorrow. Wouldn't miss it. Got some information you might find interesting. I smiled in the darkness. The war was just getting started, and I was beginning to think I might actually win. Sunday morning at the VFW was a sacred ritual in Millbrook. Veterans from 3 different wars gathered to drink coffee, play cards, and solve the world's problems over eggs and bacon. It was the one place in town where rank didn't matter. A retired general got the same respect as a former private, as long as he'd served his country. Cal Palmer had been running the place for 8 years, ever since he'd retired from the Army with 25 years of service and a Purple Heart from Afghanistan. He was a big man with graying hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. We'd served together in Iraq, back when the world was simpler and the enemy wore uniforms. You look like hell, he said as I walked in. Feel worse. Got any coffee? Always got coffee. Question is, you want it with or without whiskey? Without. It's not even noon yet. Cal poured 2 cups and led me to a corner table away from the other patrons. The VFW was busy this morning, filled with men who understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than themselves. So, Cal said, settling into his chair. Want to tell me what really happened yesterday? I gave him the whole story, the confrontation with Evan, the mention of his wife, the scene in the parking lot. Cal listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or raising an eyebrow. You mentioned his wife, he said when I finished. That was either very smart or very stupid. Which one do you think? Depends on what you know about her. Nothing yet, but I'm planning to find out. Cal smiled. That's where I come in. Remember Tommy Kowalski? Served with us in 2008? Yeah, good soldier. What about him? He works for a private investigation firm in the city now. Owed me a favor, so I called it in. Asked him to do some digging on your friend Evan Cranford. He slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were photographs, financial records, and what looked like surveillance reports. Jesus, California. How did you get all this? Tommy's very good at his job, and Cranford isn't as careful as he thinks he is. I flipped through the documents, my anger growing with each page. Bank statements showing regular withdrawals from ATMs near cheap motels. Credit card receipts for jewelry and flowers. Photographs of Evan with at least 3 different women, none of whom were his wife. He's been busy, I said. Gets better. Look at the last page. The final document was a report from a paralegal named Jessica Chen. According to her statement, Evan had been sexually harassing female employees at the law firm for years. The firm had quietly settled several complaints, but Jessica was considering going public. This is gold, I said. Gets even better. Guess who convinced Jessica to keep quiet about Evan's behavior? I looked up from the folder. Riley. Your wife helped cover up her boyfriend's sexual harassment. Jessica's got emails proving it. I sat back in my chair, processing the information. Riley hadn't just cheated on me. She'd compromised her professional ethics to protect her lover. The woman who'd lectured me about moral responsibility and doing the right thing had helped silence victims of sexual harassment. What are you thinking? Cal asked. I'm thinking Evan Cranford is about to have a very bad week. And Riley? Riley made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. I spent the rest of Sunday planning my next move. Evan thought he was untouchable because he had money and connections, but he'd made a crucial mistake. He'd underestimated me. I wasn't some blue-collar nobody who would roll over and accept defeat. I was a combat veteran who'd learned how to fight dirty when the situation called for it. Monday morning, I drove to the law firm and waited across the street. At 9:15, Evan arrived in a rental car. Apparently, his BMW was still in the shop. He looked tired and stressed, probably dealing with insurance claims and police reports. At 10:30, I called the firm's main number. "Morrison, Keller and Associates," the receptionist answered. "I'd like to speak with Jessica Chen, please." "May I ask who's calling?" "Jake Brennan. I'm calling about Evan Cranford." There was a pause, then, "Please hold." Jessica Chen had a soft voice with a slight accent. She sounded nervous when she came on the line. "Mr. Brennan? What can I do for you? I think we should meet. I have information about Evan Cranford that you might find interesting." "I don't think that's appropriate." "Mr. Cranford is a partner at this firm. I know what he did to you, Jessica, and I know Riley helped cover it up." Another pause, longer this time. "Where do you want to meet?" We agreed on a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where we could talk privately. Jessica was younger than I'd expected, maybe 25, with short black hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked scared but determined. "I shouldn't be talking to you," she said as we sat down with our coffee. "But you are. That tells me you're tired of keeping quiet. You don't understand. If I go public with this, my career is over. Evan has connections everywhere. What if I told you that you wouldn't be alone? That there are other women willing to come forward?" Her eyes widened. "Other women?" I showed her some of the photographs from Cal's folder. Evan with different women at various motels and restaurants. "He's a serial cheater and a predator. You're not his only victim." Jessica studied the photos, her expression hardening. "My God, I thought I was the only one." "You were never the only one. Men like Evan don't change their patterns. They just get better at hiding them." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to go public. File a formal complaint with the State Bar Association. Tell your story to the media. Make sure everyone knows what kind of man Evan Cranford really is." "And what do you get out of it?" I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "I get justice. For you, for the other women he's hurt, and for my family." Jessica was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. When she looked up, her expression had changed. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now, determination. "I'll need protection," she said. "Evan will try to destroy me. You'll have it. I know people who can help. And you'll make sure the other women come forward too. I'll do everything I can." She nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do this." As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Evan Cranford thought he was fighting a divorced contractor with nothing to lose. He had no idea he was about to face a coordinated attack from multiple fronts. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Riley's number flashed on the screen. "Hello, Riley." "Jake, we need to talk. This has gone too far." "Has it?" "I'm just getting started." "What does that mean?" "It means your boyfriend has made some very powerful enemies, and you've made some very poor choices. I don't know what you're talking about." "Jessica Chen, ring a bell?" The silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. "Jake, please, don't do this. You should have thought about that before you helped him silence his victims." I hung up and walked into my house, where Emily was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up as I came in, studying my expression. "You look different," she said. "Happier." I am happier. Things are starting to look up. "Does this have something to do with Mom's phone call?" She seemed upset when she hung up. Your mom made some choices, Em. Now she has to deal with the consequences. Emily nodded, then went back to her homework, but I caught her smiling as she bent over her textbook. The war was about to escalate, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I was going to win. The story broke on Wednesday morning. Jessica Chen's interview with Channel 7 News was devastating. A calm, articulate young woman describing years of sexual harassment by Evan Cranford, backed up by emails and witness statements from 2 other former employees who'd found the courage to come forward. But the real bombshell came when Jessica revealed that Riley Brennan, junior partner at Morrison, Keller and Associates, had pressured her to stay quiet about the harassment in exchange for a promotion that never materialized. I watched the news segment from my kitchen table, drinking coffee and feeling something that might have been satisfaction. Emily sat across from me, eating cereal and scrolling through her phone. "Holy shit," she said, then looked up apologetically. "Sorry, but Dad, this is everywhere. Mom's name is trending on social media." She showed me her phone screen. Number Riley Brennan was indeed trending, along with number Evan Cranford and number Me Too. The comments were brutal, calling Riley everything from an enabler to a traitor to her own gender. My phone started ringing at 7:30 and didn't stop for the next 2 hours. Reporters wanting comments, lawyers wanting to represent me in the divorce, old friends calling to offer support or ask for gossip. I let them all go to voicemail. At 10 o'clock, I drove to Morrison, Keller and Associates. A news van was parked outside, and I could see reporters trying to interview anyone who entered or left the building. The law firm's brass nameplate looked a little tarnished in the morning light. I parked across the street and waited. At 10:15, the front door opened, and Riley emerged, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who were probably lawyers themselves. She looked haggard, dark circles under her eyes, hair not quite as perfect as usual, makeup that couldn't quite hide the stress. The reporters swarmed her immediately, shouting questions about Jessica Chen and the harassment cover-up. Riley kept her head down and pushed through the crowd without comment, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She made it to her car, a BMW sedan that I was pretty sure belonged to Evan, and drove away with the news van following. I smiled and started my truck. The hunter had become the hunted. That afternoon, I got a call from Morrison, Keller, and Associates. Not from Riley, but from the senior partner himself. "Mr. Brennan, this is Richard Morrison. I think we need to discuss the situation with your wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected. "What about her?" "I'm sure you're aware of the allegations that have come to light regarding Mr. Cranford and Ms. Brennan's role in managing the situation." "You mean covering up sexual harassment?" A pause. "That's a very serious accusation." "It's also true." "I have the emails." Another pause, longer this time. "Perhaps we could meet. Discuss a resolution that would be beneficial to all parties." "What kind of resolution?" "The kind that might make your divorce proceedings considerably smoother and more profitable." I almost laughed. They were trying to buy me off, probably hoping I'd disappear quietly and take my evidence with me. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too long, Mr. Brennan." Situations like this have a way of spiraling out of control. That evening, I was sitting on my porch when Riley's car pulled into the driveway. She looked even worse than she had that morning. Hair disheveled, makeup smeared, clothes wrinkled like she'd been sleeping in them. "We need to talk," she said, walking up the porch steps. "I'm listening." "You have to make this stop." The reporters, the social media, all of it. Emily's friends are asking her questions at school. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you helped silence sexual harassment victims." Riley's composure finally cracked. "I didn't know. Evan told me Jessica was lying, that she was trying to extort money from the firm. I was protecting the business. You were protecting your boyfriend. I was protecting my career. Do you have any idea how hard it is for a woman to make partner at a law firm? How many sacrifices I've made?" apparently including your integrity." She slapped me then, hard enough to snap my head to the side. For a moment, we both stood there in shock, Riley because she'd never hit me before, me because I'd never seen her lose control so completely. "You bastard," she whispered. "You're destroying everything I've worked for." I touched my cheek, where her hand had left a red mark. "You destroyed it yourself, Riley. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. The firm fired me today. Evan, too. We're both blacklisted. Good." "Good?" "Jake, I have no job, no income, no prospects. How is that good?" "Because now you know how it feels to lose everything. Now you know what you put me through." Riley started to cry then. Not the elegant tears of a woman who cries prettily, but ugly, desperate sobs that shook her whole body. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "I'm sorry," she gasped between sobs. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I made a mistake. I made so many mistakes." "Yes, you did. Can't we work this out? Can't we try again?" I looked at my wife of 16 years, reduced to begging on my front porch, and felt nothing but emptiness where love used to be. "No," I said. "We can't." She cried harder, and I went inside and closed the door. The next morning brought more good news. Evan Cranford's wife had filed for divorce, citing adultery and emotional cruelty. She was asking for everything: the house, the cars, the country club membership, and half of his considerable assets. Better yet, the State Bar Association had opened an investigation into both Evan and Riley's conduct. Even if criminal charges weren't filed, their legal careers were effectively over. I was reading about it online when Emily came downstairs for breakfast. She looked tired but determined. "I talked to Mom last night," she said. "She called crying, begging me to ask you to stop." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that actions have consequences. That she should have thought about this before she cheated on you and helped cover up sexual harassment." I looked at my daughter with pride and a little sadness. She was growing up fast, learning lessons about life that no 17-year-old should have to learn. "I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this, Em." "I'm not in the middle, Dad." I picked a side, remember? That afternoon, I met with my lawyer to discuss the divorce settlement. With Riley unemployed and unemployable, the balance of power had shifted dramatically in my favor. "She's willing to give up her claim to the house and the business," my lawyer said. "She just wants enough money to start over somewhere else." "How much?" $50,000, and she wants to maintain a relationship with Emily. I thought about it. $50,000 was a lot of money, but it was worth it to be rid of Riley permanently. And Emily was old enough to decide for herself whether she wanted a relationship with her mother. "Deal," I said. "But I want it in writing that she can never come back and ask for more." Already drafted. That evening, I sat on my porch with a beer and watched the sun set over Millbrook. Mrs. Duval was in her garden, pretending to weed while actually keeping an eye on my house. Some things never changed. My phone buzzed with a text from Cal Palmer. "Heard about the settlement. Drinks to celebrate?" I typed back, "Rain check. Want to spend the evening with my daughter." "You did good, Jake. Riley and Cranford got what they deserved. Maybe they had, and maybe they hadn't. Justice was a complicated thing, and revenge was messier than the movies made it look. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again." Emily came out and sat beside me on the porch swing. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood settle into evening routines. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure out what comes next. Together. Just the two of us. Just the two of us." She leaned against my shoulder, and I put my arm around her. In the distance, I could hear the sound of traffic on Main Street, the normal sounds of a small town going about its business. Riley and Evan had tried to destroy me, thinking I was just another victim who would accept defeat quietly. They'd been wrong about that, just like they'd been wrong about so many other things. I wasn't the last good man in Millbrook. There were plenty of decent people in this town. But I might have been the last man willing to fight back when someone tried to take everything I'd worked for. And in the end, that had made all the difference.